Hello, welcome back. This is video 10 now, part 2 of the build of this gearbox. And as you can see, things have changed a little bit. I'm just going to spin the box around for you because I should have done this before I put the camera on. But it just makes life a bit easier and you can see more. Okay, so there we are. So you can see now we've got the 3 selector rods in. There's a ball between each one, so there's 2 balls, and then you've got an interlock pin on the, what's that, 3rd, 4th. So this is 5th, this is 3rd, 4th, this is 1st and 2nd, and this one I think is also going to be reversed. I can't remember now, but I think it's that one. So so basically, yeah, now this is where I'm going to really hammer the Haynes manual, because they go on. I'll read you the words exactly from the manual, and it says here, step 20. Step 25, refitting of the lay shaft is the reversal of its removal. You've got to put the lay shaft in with the main shaft. You can't put the lay shaft in separately. And then so that's step 25. Tighten the front bearing lock bolt to the torque wrench setting as specified at the beginning of this chapter. Well, how are you going to get to it? And then refit the detent balls and springs. The correct positioning of the colour-coded springs is important. Well, on this one, all the springs are the same colour. They're all like a mid-blue, like a French blue colour. Facing the gearbox, the left-hand spring is blue, the centre spring dark green, and the right-hand spring light green. So what they're asking us to do now is, after fitting the lay shaft, refit the detent balls and springs, which go into these grooves here. We need the casing, so surely it should say fit the casing. There is also absolutely no mention of a very important part, which is this here. This is a magnet, and this is going to go, you can see this is magnetized. It's not that magnetic, but it goes into a slot in there in the intermediate casing and sits there. So now I've cleaned these faces off, okay, and I've quickly gone around them with a stone. I've got a stone here, which is a very handy tool to have. It doesn't leave any debris behind or anything, and it's just, you can just go around and just a final check. I'm not going mad, it's just a final check to see if there's any little raised nuts and bumps where I might have caught something, you know, that's going to prevent it sealing properly. So that's that, okay, and then we can once again, we'll get some carb cleaner on the rag and just go around and just give it a final quick wipe down. Okay, now make sure that you've torqued these up. Okay, there's 3 there, make sure they're all torqued up, and you've got the thread lock on them as well, I would. So now we've got to fit the gaskets. So I've got the gaskets, I don't know if you can see, yeah, they're hung up here. And they all look very similar, so make sure you get the right one, and also make sure you get it the right way up. So this one's going to go like that, I believe. Nope, it's going the other way up, so it's going with the writing down. Okay, so that's going to go on there like that. Lovely. Now I hope it doesn't pose as a problem. That's okay, that's okay. We've got a large hole here that you can't see, but no large hole in the gasket, so that's okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use some grease, which is quite a common practice with paper gaskets, is to put some grease on them, just like so. Oops, got the grease stuck in the hole. Okay, just put some grease on there. It doesn't need a ton, it just needs a bit. And then we can go around like that. Sorry, I'm off camera. Go around like that and just smear it on, and then turn over, and there's enough on there. All you want to do, it doesn't need to be dripping wet, it just needs to be damp. What it does, it just softens the gasket a little bit and lets it seat better. It also, in this case, because this is I think a poor design, this flange here is not going to be bolted together until we finish building the gearbox, so it can all slide about. It's terrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on this casing and hope it stays in place when we're upside down, because I don't want to pinch it when we put the, so if I put it on here, the dowels have got to go down through the gasket. It might pinch it. You know, with a piece of paper, double thickness, you'll end up with oil leaks. So that's on there like that. Okay, so that grease should help everything to hold together. It's Saturday today, it's Fairford Day, so hopefully you'll hear lots of fantastic airplanes going over. Right, so now this casing, it's a shame to get my greasy fingerprints on it, but we can clean it after. So this case, oh, something I almost forgot. I'm going to get my oil. Okay, and I'm going to get my little brush. And I'm going to put some oil on this bearing, just to help it seat. And I'm going to put some oil on these gears, just, I could just pour it in there, but I don't want it all drooping everywhere, running out. So we've got Fairford on, and it sounds, there's F-16s and all sorts down there I expect. And we've got a single engine Cessna by the sound of it. Okay, so there we go. So I'm going to put that in there for now, and then we can take this casing and slide it down over, just like so, making sure we don't hit anything on the way down. Oh, I didn't oil those shafts, whoops. Excuse me, I didn't oil those shafts, did I? Always, 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 when something's going into aluminium, when steel's going into, especially with edges like that, always lubricate it. So I've got a bit of a cold coming, I think. Right, let's come down like this. Here goes the bloody football. Okay, so that's going to drop down on there, just like so. Get the shafts lined up. There we go, that's dropped down on, and that's gone home. And the gasket, I can see, is still all good. Right, so that's all good. Okay. Now what I could probably do is get a bolt up through one of these holes and get it in, get my hand in there and get one in. But I don't think I'll bother for now. We'll see how we get on. Now what we have to do now, this is where this design falls flat on its face. We need to put the detents in here, that's fine. Now there's a circlip groove going to go on this bearing at the top. I'm going to pick the camera up so I can show you this bearing here. But this is the one, if you remember, I held in with that white circlip, white cable tie. Now we're going to put a C-clip on there, which will hold it all together, you'd think, but the trouble is that bearing just slides off, so it's not going to hold it together. So what we need to do is get either mock up this and just put the parts on there and bolt them down, okay, and get them pulled down to hold it all together. And then we can take off the front and fit the bell housing, or we just build the whole thing and then do the bell housing last. I think I'm going to go for the second option. That way it all gets disturbed once rather than more than once. Okay, so what we've got to do now is, you see, I need to put this C-clip on here, but I really don't want to, because all it's going to do is pull that away. If I put the C-clip on there, this shaft will be hanging on this bearing and it will drop, and that thrust bearing will come out. So we really need to do this in the horizontal plane, I'm guessing. Or if we take this block of wood away, let's just move this gearbox out for a second. There we go. Yeah, so now the gearbox is sitting on the main shaft because the end of the main shaft is touching the bench. Okay, so we need to pull this up. Yeah. I'm going to think about this, hang on. Okay, so I made the decision. What we're going to have to do, we're going to have to fit these detents, and that will help to hold all this together. And then we're going to have to do the bell housing, because there's you've got a snap ring that's stopping the shaft going that way out, but then there's also a cut washer which goes between the bell housing and the main case, that's actually forcing everything up. So that way I won't risk pulling this up. My risk, in case you want to go back and have a look at video 9, part 1 of this gearbox build, and underneath here there's a thrust washer which is actually rollers mounted in a nylon cage, and it can easily come off its lip and then be pinched, and I won't know until it's built, and if I pinch it, that's it. So I don't want to risk doing that. That's why I've got this. Somebody asked about this circlet. That's cable tie. That's why it's there. So what we've got here is 3 holes. We're going to put the ball in each hole, then we're going to put a spring in each hole. As I said, we've got the 3 springs here, and as you can see, they are all the same colour. Okay, so we're going to put the ball in the hole. Now, I'm not sure they're going to stay in there. Yes, they are. I've put a drop of oil in there to help sort of stick everything together. So they should stay in there like that. And then we're going to put the springs in. There's a bit of fluffy rag on there. Get rid of that. So the spring goes in like that. And that one goes in like that. And then that one's going to go in there. And then we've got another gasket which I've got on a hook here, which is just in front of the camera. So I'm going to first of all see which way it goes. So we've got, it's looking like that way, isn't it? Yes. Whoops, now I've got to get it out without pulling the springs out. Can you hear that football against the garage wall next door? Does my absolute bloody nutting. When I moved here 17, 18 years ago, next door had a couple of young sons that played football all the time. And then the people behind, as they grew up, they started kicking the football against the garage wall. It's not my garage wall, I wouldn't accept that. It's their garage wall. So it's just this constant doof, 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 doof. Every day, every weekend. I so look forward to the school holidays. It's so good. And then, of course, those lads grew up, they moved. Somebody else bought the house with a couple of young kids, and now they play football all day, all weekend. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Right. So that's going in there like that. And that's going to go in there like that. And this will, believe it or not, these balls will help to hold all this together. I'm going to have to lay it over on its side. And what I'm tempted to do is put the parts on here to hold this shaft together so that that bearing cannot get disturbed. Okay, there's no washers on here, in case you're wondering, there's no washers. So I'm going to get a little 13mm spanner. I should have prepared better, shouldn't I? I'm sorry. 13mm spanner. And I'm going to put that over there and just pull these down nice and evenly. Try not to scratch my fresh black paint. I think there is a torque setting for these. It's going to be about 18 pounds-feet. Let me just check. Yeah, 18 pounds-feet. Trouble is, I don't know whether to bloody trust this manifold or not. Manifold, manual even. It's not the best. Torque wrench out. And then we'll set this to 18 pounds-feet, as you can see on here. 18 pounds-feet, guys. If you've got M8 bolts, 18 pounds-feet is pretty much, that's a 12mm socket wrench. It's pretty much standard for M8. Most things are between 16 and 18, maybe even 20. What am I doing? Picking up the wrong sockets, unlike me. Being a proper tart, trying not to scratch the black paint. There we go. So that's that on like that. That was all caked in muck and crap, if you remember. So that's that. So we'll put the the torque wrench down there. So the next thing the manual says, after we put these planks on, refit the detent balls and springs. Next thing is, the fitting of the reverse gear and selector assemblies is almost identical. So I'm going to have a little think what to do here, because I think I want to pinch all that together. So what I think I'm going to do is cut this thing. In fact, I might just take Dottie out so I can get away from that confounded bloody football. Right, see you in a minute. Right then, guys, we're back. It's the next day now, it's Sunday, and yeah, yesterday rain stopped play as far as taking Dottie out, but at least the rain stopped play with footballs as well. So I got a little bit done, and stupidly, I'm filming this on my iPhone. If you know how an iPhone works, you basically press the button and it turns from a circle to a square, and that means it's recording. So yeah, I pressed the button to show what I was doing, and sometimes because it's on a tripod, you sort of, as you come away, the phone rocks, and I clicked it twice and I didn't realise I'd recorded nothing. So I've done a little bit without it being recorded, but nothing much, and I've put the gearbox back to its vertical state so you can follow along. Now, if you remember, for me it's yesterday, for you it's a few seconds ago. Oh, by the way, congratulations to Oliver Solberg. What a complete and utter astounding drive that was for Gazoo Racing with the WRC1 Toyota. First time ever in the WRC1 Toyota. He's been driving the Rally 2 Toyota this season, and he got a drive, I think it was in OGH's car, and basically led from start to finish. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable, especially when you consider second and third places were both Hyundais, and you got the likes of Elfyn Evans and Rovanpera, you know, way back, and it's just absolutely astounding. I'm sure Gazoo Racing will be having some conversations with Mr. Solberg in the near future, because that was just an absolutely astounding drive. And it was the 100th victory, and on the podium Oliver Solberg got to stand there with his, what he said was his hero all his life, was Juha Kankkunen. And Juha Kankkunen, of course, is Gazoo Racing's team principal, and yeah, just absolutely unbelievable. I'm not sure if Kankkunen is their principal all the time, is he, or is it just for that event? Because you've got Kovalainen, is also in I thought he was Gazoo Racing, but anyway, they're just an amazing team. But I just find it absolutely astounding that Oliver Solberg, first time in the car, and for today, Sunday, first time ever in the car in the wet, ever, and just kept first place from start to finish. He led from the minute one to the end. Absolutely incredible, you know. And then you consider the other GR1, the Rally 1 GRs were 3rd, 4th and 7th, I think. I can't remember now. But anyway, absolutely incredible. And in Rally 2, they came second and 3rd with the Rally 2 GR, which is astounding. I actually prefer the Rally 2 GR Yaris because it's more representative of what the road car is than the WRC1. I mean, the WRC1 has probably got Gazoo Race with Yaris headlights, that's about it, you know. Whereas the Rally 2 car is actually, you know, it's the same body shell, yeah, it's the same engine block, yeah, that's about it, really. Probably got the same windscreen, but it has, I mean, the GR that I own, the road car, doesn't even have pillars around the doors, so it's not the same in that respect. But it's more of what the GR Yaris was going to be, which was the reverse engineered rally car. So anyway, enough about those. So yeah, if you remember, the big concern here was this shaft here. There's a bearing in here which is hanging on a circlip, and that shaft can drop. So if that shaft drops, because this bearing isn't pressed on, we run the risk of the needle roller thrust race coming unlodged and getting pinched. So that was my concern. So I've been trying to think of a way of actually doing this by having the gearbox horizontal and getting the front attached. Now, as I'll show you in a minute, when the bell housing goes on, not only is there a C-clip holding the front bearing in to stop it from going back, but there is also a thrust washer, a cone washer, which presses up against the back of the bell housing. So when you put it in, you're actually forcing the primary gear into the gearbox, so that's locking it in place, and in turn that will stop this from dropping down when I put the gearbox vertical. So the objective here is to actually get the bell housing off, build it up properly with the gasket and everything, the new seal and all that, and then get the gearbox back up on its end like this. Excuse me, I had to clear my throat then. Get the gearbox back up on its end and continue to build the rear end, and then that will be done then. I'm not going to fit the clutch fork yet. I've got a new clutch kit for it, which was unbelievable. Found it in Germany for £55 free postage, and it's genuine sash. Unbelievable. So yeah, that was a company on eBay. Absolutely astounding. Autofix they're called. Absolutely brilliant. Fantastic service, fantastic communication, fantastic packaging. Unbelievable. I'll definitely be using them again. I need to get a new water pump as well. What do you think of this? I was looking at the water pump last night, and I'm just wondering, do you think this is perhaps, I mean, it's quite tight to turn, but listen, do you think maybe it's a bit shot? If I spray carb cleaner in there, it stops knocking, so obviously that's probably the water seal that's moving backwards and forwards, but I'm not going to trust that. I'm not going to trust that. I don't want to. The trouble is with this car, it's never going to be going very far, but you think even if I went 5 miles down the road and it broke down and I couldn't get it home, you know, imagine leaving this somewhere, it's just going to get stolen like that. So it needs to be reliable, as reliable as I can get it anyway. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to get on with the gearbox, and I'm going to show you how I get it down flat on the bench and then work on the front end. It's going to need a repositioning of the camera, but we'll go from there. All right, see you in a second. Okay, so here we have the gearbox on the bench up on its end. I've got a wooden block here because there's like an undercut in the bell housing. So I'm going to lift the box up and move that wooden block back there. Okay, and then you can tip the gearbox over. And this is another reason it's great for having it all clean, because you can do this and not get absolutely filthy. So there it is, and you can see there's the input shaft. You can see the bell housing there all nice and clean. So what I'm going to do is bring this around like this now, okay, and get it on the edge of the bench so that the bell housing is not fouling on the bench. Now what I want to do here is lift it up and put a wooden block under there, okay, just to get a bit of a downward slope on it. Okay, so you can see that's pretty steady. It's got a bit of a rock on it because of the casting. There's like a lump in the middle, I think. See if I can bring that forward a bit. That's better, that's solid now. Okay, so we've got the bell housing hanging off the front of the bench. In fact, with the block there, we don't need to do that. We can move it back a bit. So we'll move it back up against the, there we go. Now off camera, I have fitted the C-clips that hold the bearings in, so I've already done that. So if we just bring the camera around a bit, better for you there, or move down a touch perhaps. So I've put 2 bolts in temporarily, so we'll whip those out quickly. The same on here. As soon as I do this, the bell housing wants to drop. It won't fall off because the shaft is there. But what I need to do is take the weight of the bell housing because otherwise it fouls the, yeah, these bolts are, there's no, it's a bit weird, there's no positive location for this bell housing other than that bearing. So obviously what happens is the bell housing can sort of rotate on that bearing. You don't really know quite what's going on there. We'll just back these out a bit more. There we go. We've got the weight of the bellows on the bolt, which is why it appears to have tight threads. It's not tight threads. Okay, so take that bell housing off. Put that down there. Okay, you can get those there. Right, so as you can see here, I fitted these C-clips on here. So there's one on there, there's one on there. This was a bit of a nightmare to get on this one because the shaft just floats back as soon as you put any pressure on it. So I wedged a piece of wood in behind on the other end of the shaft to hold it so I could put the clip on, but it's gone on absolutely fine. So that's all done, and we've got a bit of oil on there and everything. So so there we are, that's all good, and that's that. So we need to clean these faces, but before we do that, I'm going to look at fitting the seal. In here, in this recess, we're going to fit our spring washer, and we're also going to fit, this is the tube the clutch release bearing slides up and down on, and in there goes the seal for the input shaft. Now the seal is sort of, you can see this bore. Where's the new seal? Where did I put it? I put it in the car because the wind was picking up. I didn't want the wind to grab everything. So the seal goes into here this way round, okay? But it's not all the way down, and I've measured where it was, and it was 4 millimeters in. So what I've done, I've turned up a tool, okay, that the seal will sit on, like so, and then I can push this into here. I'll put a little bit of sealant around it first, just in case. I always do when it's second time going in case there's any scoring or anything in here. You don't want oil leaks coming past the seal. And then what I'll do is, either using the press or the vise, I'll just press that in until these faces, these two faces here, come together. So I'm going to put some sealant on there, and then we'll get it together. Okay, so I've put a tiny little smear of sealant around the edge of that seal. Okay, and then we can put that in there. Observe that it's going in pretty square. Alright, and then I'm going to put this little tool on the top. If you don't have the means of making tools like this, you can just sort of tap it in, whatever, put it in flush, and then push it in a bit more with a socket and a vise or whatever. But what I'm doing it here in the vise, just for you guys. I have got a press, but obviously a lot of you don't have presses and stuff like that. So we can push that in, just like so. That's a nice snug fit in there as well. Okay, just push that in until the tool is nicely aligned. And I'm going to have to get something inside there just to tap the tool out because it's stuck on the seal. So you can see now the seal has gone in, okay, and it's 4 millimeters deep. Now what I'm going to do is just come around with a rag and wipe away the excess sealant. This is a problem that Toyota had with their GR86. They use so much bloody sealant in the engine, it's all sort of oozed out of the joints, and it's the sealant breaks off and ends up clogging up the oil pickup pipe, and then that's it, engine over. So that's what a lot of people are doing. They're replacing the, you can see how that goes in there. It's nice and flush on there. Just check that it's nice and flush. You need the seal to be square because you don't want it because if it's not square, it'll be sort of, as it's going around on as the pinion shaft's going around, it's sort of wiping on it rather than just going around in it. So there we are. That's that done. Okay. So we're going to have to put some oil around there, obviously, and I'm going to do that now so that I don't forget. So put some lubrication on there. In fact, I'm going to have to get some more oil on the brush. Let's just bring the camera back up again. We don't need to flood it, but we just want to make sure the edges is wet. Always wet your seals. And we'll also wet this diameter here, and then remove. Notice I've got clean and dirty rags, guys. Just remove the excess. Okay, and then that will slide over there, lovely. Now on here goes an O-ring, so we'll stick that there, and I'll grab the O-ring. Okay, so there's the O-ring on there, and then this will just basically fit into the back of the bell housing into this diameter here. Let me move the camera up. It's a bloody nightmare filming all this. It's easier than the modelling bench. So it's got to go into that diameter there, and then there's going to be a spring washer going on there, a gasket, and then we're going to fit everything up. So what I'm going to do is, rather than film all that, I'm just going to do it, okay? Because I got a feeling it's going to be quite awkward. But basically, this bearing, this sleeve will sit in there, and you can see it's keyed so it only goes in one way. All right, and then the bloody fluff off these rags here, and then that ring will sit in there. I've got to somehow hold it all together. Not quite sure how, and maybe I have to lift the gearbox up and drop it down on, but that's going to be a nightmare without damaging that seal. It's not very well designed, this gearbox, I don't think, for the assembling anyway. Obviously in the factory they know what they're doing and I don't, so there we go. Right, so we'll get this together. I'll probably use some grease to hold the ring in. There's no way it's going to stay on there. If I put it on there, it's got to stay in there, and that's that. But as you can imagine, having the bell housing on its front face and lifting this up and putting it down through that seal without damaging it would be an absolute nightmare. You might be thinking, why don't you slide that over this and have it all locked together and then put the bell housing on? You've got that key at the bottom, that's got to be in exactly the right position to allow it to go on. I guess it's a possibility, looking at it actually, because we could just joggle the, yeah, let's give that a go. But the trouble is that then there's nothing to hold the ring in place. Here you've got the diameter. The ring is here. This is the ring that goes in, and that's just going to sit in there like that. It might be easier if I had the gearbox horizontal, or even perhaps lift the back up. That might be a bad idea, mightn't it? I'll let you know when I've done it. I'm not going to film it because there'll probably be some swearing involved. Back in a minute. Right, I wasn't going to film this, but let's give it a go. You probably have a good laugh at me anyway. So we've got the seal in there with the retainer ring, as you can see, and that retainer ring is held in with a drop of grease. We've also got the gasket on here, which is also held on with a drop of grease. I'm prepared with a bolt either side, so we've got to slide this on, okay, without that ring falling out and without damaging the seal. So I just want to check I haven't damaged that seal, because I had it on an angle over that spline. That's okay. Right, let's get it into there. Get it onto there. Everything's staying in place for now. Now you can see what's happening. That clip is putting that much preload that I can't even locate the bell housing on the bearing. Just put a bolt in there. And then using, I wish they cover this in the manual, because this is so intense and so easily get it wrongable. Okay, so I put that one in there. I'm going to put one down here in the opposite corner. Make sure we don't damage the gasket. Okay, so that's screwed into the gasket now. Right. What I want to do is get all the bolts in. To make sure we don't damage this gasket. Remember, this gasket, a lot of times the bell housing just bolts on, it's not an oil seal, but this is actually part of the gearbox casing. So okay, it's starting to go on. I have actually put a drop of oil on the threads of these bolts and under the heads of the washers. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to film this. I'm going to go round and put all the other bolts in, and as you can see, I've left a little gap. If you can see, there's a little gap. You can see there's a little gap here, so I can, as I push the bolts in, I can check I'm not damaging the gasket. So I'm going to go around and get them taut up. They're 36 pounds-feet, and then we'll go from there. Right, see you in a bit. Right, so all pinched in. What I've done, you can see the paper gasket all the way on the edge. You can't see it, but I can. And just make sure when you're putting everything in there that the gasket is not getting pulled into the hole, because I think it's 4 of the holes look like they should have dowels in them, but they haven't. They're massive clearance, so the gasket could easily get pulled in. So basically now what we're going to do is tighten the bolts. So 36 pounds-feet on my little 3/8 inch torque wrench. So we're going to diagonal fashion. So we're going to go steadily bit by bit. I'm not going to go straight to 36. There is no pattern in the manual or anything for this, obviously. Okay, so what I think I might do is set this to sort of 30. No, in fact, I'll just set it to, because what I don't want to do is pinch that gasket. The trouble is, if you put too much force in one side, let's go down to 20. We're probably already there. That feels much tighter than 20. Is my torque wrench playing up? Okay, so I think this torque wrench may be playing up, because that feels a lot tighter than 20 pounds-feet to me. The other thing we need to do is fit this clutch pivot fork. Now, I don't believe there is a torque wrench setting for this. Okay then guys, carry cam for a minute. So we can see they're all done. I've also got the clutch pivot bearing in there. So yeah, that was a nightmare. If you've got some help at hand, you'll need someone to hold the gearbox, because there's no way you're going to get those bolts torqued up without it, because the gearbox just keeps wanting to pivot over. So what I do, I have a tool which we'll call a helping hand. I made this many years ago, and it's absolutely brilliant, because see, I've got an assortment of different bolts that I use in it. Here I've used new bolts because they're screwing into the aluminium casting, but as you can see here, what happens is I've screwed this into the casting here, into these two bolts, and then this comes over. Just wedge a piece of wood or something under there, and then you've got all that leverage. It's fantastic for undoing things like flywheels or crank pulley bolts or whatever. If the engine's out, it's absolutely brilliant. If the engine's in the car and there's holes in the pulley, you can actually use this. And what I've got here, I've got a couple of M10 bolts here that I'll just shove in there and shove in any old hole. So that sounds wrong, doesn't it? Just shove it in a hole in the pulley. It doesn't matter if the hole's half an inch, 20 mil, whatever, and just hold it there, and it's fantastic. It's a fantastic lever, and here you can see, and it's also handy for, I can use like one finger pressure here to lift the gearbox up. So it's got so much leverage, it's working for you. So it's just a piece of, I got this from B&Q, believe it or not. Let's see if it's got the size on here. Has it got the size on here? No. But it's basically, what is it, 30 mil by 6. You just get a metre length, and I've just cut an end off it there, drilled a couple of holes, and there it is. And that's our tool for doing all that. So 36 pounds-feet, quite a pull down. All those gaskets, as you can see, are all pinched in there nicely. Where's the back one? There it is. They're all pinched there nicely now, and living daylight squeezed out of them. So hopefully we'll get no oil leaks. I don't think it was leaking from here before. It was leaking from here, and it was leaking up here. So we might have to pay a bit of attention to these faces. And it was also leaking from around the remote as well. So worth bearing in mind. And now we've got this bearing, as you can see, this bearing here, the one we were worried about, it's now there waiting for its circlip, and it hasn't moved along at all. So that's good. So what we'll do, we'll get this bracket off, and we'll get the gearbox back up on its front end. I was incorrect when I said that the input shaft is proud of the bell housing. It's not. As you can see there, if I get it all flush, you can see it's not, it's just away, so that's good. We can hear now, we've got our gearbox to remember, it's pretty dry in there. It's all turning over lovely. So that's a bit of a strange noise. It's just because it's dry. Anyway, let's get this up on its end and get back to filming. Okay, so now we've got the gearbox up on end. What I'd like to say here is, if you are doing one of these, I think from now on this video is going to be really handy for you, because the manual mentions nothing about any of this. So I'm just basically working through the reversal of the strip down that I did. And if we miss anything out, then we'll have to take it apart again. But I know I don't have to take any of this apart again, so that's the main thing. This end here is simple. So here we have the 3rd, 4th gear extension. So this is going to go, this is where the end of the gear stick or the gear stick extension goes and works the 3rd and 4th gear. So that's going to go onto there like that. Okay, and then you've got a bolt, a little M6 bolt with a spring washer. So what we're going to do, we're going to put some Loctite on here. There is a bit of controversy in the world about Loctite, whether you should put it on the thread or in the bore. I tend to put it on the thread and it will wipe its way around. My worry is if you put it in the bore, unless you've got it right at the top, it's not going to be all the way down. So I like to put it on the thread. So we're going to find the hole. There we go, we found the hole. Make sure it's all dry. I've cleaned the thread out with some carb cleaner. Just get my little 10mm ratchet spanner. I know you probably can't see what I'm doing, but if you've got one of these, you'll know what I'm doing. So we've got a torque wrench here set to 14.5 pounds-feet, and it just gets on the angle. There we go. So that's in there, like that. Okay, so now we've got our selectors starting to go together. So I'm going to put the top back on the thread lock because we won't be using that again for a minute. So the next thing to go, I think, is this plate. So we've got a big C-clip here, so I'm going to get my C-clip pliers, which are here. Now, if you remember, I'm concerned about this bearing being pulled away and the needle roller behind it. As long as the gearbox stays vertical, we should be okay. So that's basically going to go over there like that. And then we're going to get our circlip pliers, or C-clip pliers, in here. Open this up. I get it to go over the bearing. This is the problem here. We've got a tight recess. There we go. I should really be wearing safety glasses while I do this, because, I mean, well, it can't fly out actually, because it would have to fly out over the top of the, there we go, it's gone down now. We're back to Football City now. Here we go. So I'm going to lift this bearing up, just like so, and then using the pliers, just push the clip down into its groove. Get ready for it. Thud, 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 thud. Here we go. It's been too peaceful today, hasn't it? Let's just hope it pours down the rain in a minute. Right, so that's there together. I'm not going to go turning this around too much. When we put all this together and pull it all up, that'll be fine. So we're going to take this circlip off because it's not really doing anything now. So I'm going to grab a screwdriver, get under it, and just slide it up out the way. Okay. I think we'll know if we get all bound up, because I think we'll have issues with turning the shaft, but what I'm not going to do is turn the shaft. It's an awful design, to be honest with you. Here we go, smack smack. Wonderful sounds. Right, I know what you're thinking, live and let live, Nudge. Yeah, live and let live. 18 years of it is just too much. Okay, so I'm going to put the torque wrench away, and I'm going to see what we've got to do next. Okay, so now we have something which, again, isn't mentioned in the manual at all. We've got, on the reassembly anyway, we've got this shim steel here. Okay, this is a shim steel plate, and you can see where the bearing's been fretting before on the back. There's no step there, I think it's just obviously been fretting. So this little extension here goes over and captures this needle way. I'm going to change the angle of the camera so you're looking more down. Hang on a minute. There we go, that's better. Right, so, yeah, we've got this piece of shim steel, and that little cut there is going to hold that bearing in place. I don't know why it's there. I guess that bearing has been known to walk out or something. So that's going to go in there like that. Okay. And something that isn't mentioned anywhere in the manual, you've got this idler shaft for the reverse idler gear, and this is going to be locked in place with this plate. So that plate goes in there like that and holds it in and stops it coming out, and there's absolutely no mention of it. So what we need to do is put this shaft in place push that plate into the groove. There's a Madonna song in there somewhere, isn't there? I'm going to make sure I don't drop this shaft into the gearbox, because that could mean a strip down, although I don't think it will drop right in. Okay, so we've got to try and get all this aligned. Now, if you remember, we got these horrible old Phillips screws that they use. I'm just going to put one of those in place just to hold it in position. In fact, I'm going to put two in there, just literally to locate everything so that shaft doesn't drop in, because that would be a catastrophic nightmare. Right, so I can just see as well, I've got a little piece of aluminium where the edge of that thread is just chipped. This is the trouble with castings and turned and the threads, the word I'm looking for. So here, what we've done now, I've bought these countersunk 10.9. I showed you these before, and we're going to use the original lock washers. So that's going to go into there, like so. And I'm going to get my socket, the 3/8 drive, and screw that into there. Okay, so I'll pull that down, and we'll take that screw out of there. And this is obviously so much better for torquing them down and for getting them out. You know, screws used in, they used to use them in Fiat 128s and everything on the doors, and they're an absolute nightmare to get out. You generally had to use heat. And of course, the trouble is then you're using heat in an area where there's paint on your door pillars and stuff, which you don't want to be doing. Luckily, the 131s have M8 bolts with hexagonal heads, which is much nicer. Right, so that's in like that. Okay. Now these are going to be torqued down to 18 pounds-feet. Now the only reason I'm doing that is because I generally use, I'm going to go 12 first, I generally use 18 pounds-feet on M8 bolts. So what I'm going to do is go 12 first. I'm hoping the gearbox will stay put. In fact, I'm just going to take out the backlash first, so they're a bit more than finger tight. There we go. So now we can there's 12. Gearbox wants to slide around with me. Right, we may have to put it down on its side again to get the 18 pounds. So we'll go to the 18 pounds-feet, just like so. There we go, there's 18 pounds-feet on there. And these two, I'm going to take the extension off, because the extension is always a pain in the bum when you're trying to do this sort of thing, because it always just wants to topple over. So there we go, that's that one down. And there's that one down. And do you know what I'm thinking? I might put a drop of thread lock on these, because you can imagine what will happen if one of those comes out. I'm going to put some thread lock on. Back in a minute. Okay, so that they're in now with the thread lock. I've also just noticed this bearing's got axial play in it, which is, I've checked the old one. The old one's got more, so obviously it's designed with it, and as it warms up, I guess it closes up. So here we have the reverse gear for the counter shaft. So that's going to go on there. Make sure we got the engaging teeth facing up in this case. And before I do that, I'm just going to put some more oil into that bearing. Okay, just to give it a good old bit of lube. And then we'll drop this on here. What I will do is just put a small amount of oil on the splines, because I think we've got some damp weather coming. I don't really want this sitting around corroding. So that's going to go on there. We got our cup washer. These cup washers, what they do, you can see it's like a tapered ring, and what it does, it puts force on the circlip. So that's going to go down like that. Then we can grab our circlip pliers. I knew this was going to happen. The cupboard's in the bloody way. So what I'll do, I'll grab my angle circuit pliers. That'll make life a bit easier, won't it? Okay, so then we can put the circuit pliers, come on, into the circuit, open it up, and as you can see, I can't get it to go down because that little tapered ring is designed to keep pressure on it to stop that gear from floating on the shaft. So what we're going to do now is just grab a socket, because this is very light, like on the other, where was it? On the other end of this one I made a press to press it down. If you remember, I made a tool. With this one we're just literally going to whack it. So the circlip's on there, it's on the diameter above, so if I just give this a bang, it should enable that circlip to go in if that bloody cupboard wasn't in the way. I need to turn the gearbox around. Oh dear, this is like watching bloody, you know, professional filming, isn't it? I think that's gone in. It certainly looks like it's gone in. There we go. And then what I'm going to do, I'll do it off camera, I just go around with a little brass punch and just make sure it's gone in. Okay, so see you in a sec. Okay, moving along. In case you wonder what these rags are, there's holes. There's 4 holes here that allow oil to drain. There's a hole here, but I'm not going to shove anything in there. But my worry is dropping something down there. In fact, I am going to shove something there because we're about to put a little bolt in here to hold the reverse selector in. So we will cover those holes up, because you drop a bolt in there, it's going to spoil your Sunday, isn't it? Right, so I can also tell you, we're not going to finish the gearbox today because I've just looked in the box A, which is the tail shaft, and I haven't cleaned any of it, so I'll have to get that done later on. So we'll have part 3 and the final part of the gearbox build tomorrow. So the next thing to do now, again, not mentioned in the rebuild at all in the manual. So we've got this gear going on, and we've got a woodruff key, which is here. Okay, so this woodruff key is going to go into this shaft like so. Okay, so we'll just grab a soft mallet and just tap that in. Okay, and I like to put woodruff keys in, just knock them in so they've got a slight angle on them, as you can see there, so that when you put the gear down it presses it into place. If it's dead parallel it might catch on the edge, if it's the other way they stop the gear going on. Now what I'm going to do here is, again, because it's going to be sitting around, I know it's not a moving diameter, so it doesn't need lubrication, but I don't want it to rust. So we're going to put some oil on there, and then this gear is going to go on. Now you've got a fat face and a thin face, and it goes thin face down. Okay, so we're going to put the gear over like that. Again, the bloody cupboard's in the way. And then make sure the woodruff key lines up. Okay, and slide that on. There we go. And what that'll do, I can get in fact I can use the end of a wire brush here, and I can just push that woodruff key in at the bottom, and you can see the gear will slide down. That's the easiest way I find to put woodruff keys in, especially if they're not very tight fitting. Okay, so that's that. Now we've got a conical washer. Okay, so that's going to go on there like that. Again, I'm going to lubricate this face just to avoid corrosion. Remember, all of this is cleaned with carb cleaner, so it's pretty much grease free. Okay, we'll put some on the back of there as well, just for fun. Okay, all right, so now what I'm going to do is fit the reverse idler. Now as you can see, we've got teeth here. You can see where they've meshed. You've got teeth here. Remember, there's no synchro reverse, so they do get a bit of a knock-in. When I'm looking at the wear on this gearbox, I can't believe it's done 142,000 kilometers. I'm sure it's done 42. I mean, look at this selector fork. It's like, it's hardly been used. It's incredible. All the selector forks were like it. So in here we've got a little brass bush, so we need to make sure that that is well lubricated, because you don't want that to be running dry at all. All right, and we're also going to oil in here. Okay, so we've oiled that, and then we've got the reverse selector. It's going to go in there, and then what we're going to do, we're going to slide the idler gear and the selector on at the same time. Oh, there's a spacer to go on here, isn't there? There's a spacer to go on there. Almost forgot. So that's going to slide on there. Okay. So that obviously, what that spacer does, it stops it pulling the gear right back into the casing. So I've got my selector fork bolt here. I'm going to put some thread lock on it, just for safety. And then what I'll do is lift this up, get it engaged in the hole, screw it in. If things don't go together with your fingers, stop and have a look at what's going on, because all your threads should be lovely and clean. There we go. Right. So you've got all our selectors in now. We've got our gear there. We've got plenty of oil on it. Plenty of oil on the selector. As you can see, it wobbles about, but that goes into the other end of the casing, so we don't worry about that. I'm also going to put some oil down here and on the gear, just for corrosion prevention, and we'll put some on here as well. Okay, so now we can see everything's going lovely, and then if we select reverse, that gear goes in, and as you can see, it's very, very difficult to turn because of the gearing. I need to turn the input shaft to make it go round. In fact, I'll show you that. I'll tip it over. I can turn the input shaft, as you can see, and it makes it go. All right, so we'll take it out of reverse, like so. Okay, so now once again we'll go into the assembly which I described before. So I'm not going to do all this at the moment because it's all going to be coming apart again tomorrow. But basically that's going to go over there like that. The speedo drive is going to go on like that. Then we've got a bearing. I'm going to use the old one rather than dirty the new one. And that's just going to go on there like that. And it's a very easy fit. It's not particularly tight. And then we'll have the spider gear going on the back and then the nut, and that'll pull everything together. Okay, so bear that in mind. There we go. So that'll go on there, then the spider gear, and then the nut. I've got to give the nut some clean up. This nut was so tight. I don't know if it had welded itself on or what, but it was ridiculously tight. And as you can see, the ratchet slipped because it's not a thick nut. The socket slipped, so I'm going to clean that up with a file. Again, you see, to get this undone, what did I do? I used that big rod on the spider to hold it, so I should do the same when I do it up. So that tool I showed you just now, which was bolted to the back, such a fantastic tool. Go and make yourself one, so handy. But I'm going to get the file out, clean this up, and then I will come back tomorrow, because as I say, we've got, this is box B. There's our breather pipe, which is going to clip on, just like so. And then in here we've got the filler plug, we've got the drain plug, sorry, I'm off the camera, the filler plug here, the drain plug with the magnet in it. We've got those 3 old screws, and we've got the old O-ring. So we've used everything, that's the main thing. So when you've got bits left, you've got to worry about it. I remember I built a gearbox once. I'm not going to say which car it was. And I noticed I had I can't remember if it was a circlip or a washer in the box, so I thought, oh, I know where that goes, you bloody idiot. And it was something like an idler gear like this or something. I hadn't put it on, and it was in there, so I had to take it all apart again. Luckily it wasn't designed like this. You could take this casing off, and the bell housing bolted from that side to that and from that side to that. So I took it all apart again, put it all back together, and when I looked in the box, there was another bit that I'd taken off to get to what I had to do. So yeah, 3 times I rebuilt that gearbox. Lucky it wasn't gaskets, it was all done with sealants. But I get my dirty oily finger marks off of here now. Yes, I am a bit fussy, but hey, well, nothing wrong with being fussy, is there? Right, so we're going to call that a day there, and I will see you all tomorrow for part 3. So I'll get the parts cleaned up tonight. It's Sunday, so Dottie gets to go to the pub. And it's a bit of a tradition now, every Sunday, as long as the weather's not too bad, either 35 degrees or -7, then we don't bother, but otherwise we do. So there we go, so it's all looking lovely, all nicely in neutral now. The reason I was struggling just now, it was sort of half locked into 5th, so that was why I was struggling to turn it, trying to turn the whole gearbox. And now it's just all in neutral, so all we're doing is turning the main shaft and the lathe shaft. So all done. Hunky-dory, good stuff. I'm going to put some oil on that gear as well. I didn't put any on there, did I? So I'll put some oil on that gear and let that run down and do its thing. Right, see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching, guys, and thank you so much for subscribing. Please tell your friends, get your friends to come and subscribe. If you go on 131mirrorfury.com, please give us a shout out on there. I don't think I'm allowed to do it myself. There's also 131 Mirror Fury on Facebook, isn't there? But I'm sure some people would love to watch all this stuff in video format rather than just photographs. Or they might prefer to just look at photographs and they might think I'm a bloody idiot, and they're totally entitled to do what they want. Right, see you all soon, guys. Bye for now. Just quickly, guys, before we go, I just want to show you I have actually dummy assembled this. Okay, so we've got that conical washer, the spacer with the ring towards the gear, the speedo drive, the 6205 bearing, and the spider, and then the nut on the top. And as you can see, I've done the clean-up job on that. I've just nipped it down, literally just to close everything up, and you can see what a difference. Well, you probably can't see. I can feel the difference. Everything turns very, very easily now, so nothing's dragging. So yeah, so I'll get those parts cleaned up, and then tomorrow will be a very quick video, just getting the tail housing on and finally finishing it off. Right, I'll see you tomorrow.